welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Lisa, founder of Anna Ministry, and if you'd like to hear about true crime cases from a Christian perspective, then hit that subscribe button. Today we will be discussing how an intense and selfish desire for something, especially power or wealth, can turn from a want to a need. 1 John 2 verse 16 reads, "For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world." Today's case is wild, so get your popcorn, get your snacks, and buckle up because it's about to be a wild ride. For today's case, we will be discussing the Menendez brothers. But in order for us to understand who the Menendez brothers were, we need to go back in time and learn about their father, Jose Enrique Menendez. Jose was born on May 6, 1944 in Cuba. Jose's father was a professional former soccer player and his mother was a professional swimmer. Jose took after his parents' competitive gene and did really good in multiple sports, usually ranking first place. When Jose was 15 years old, he was sent to live in the United States by himself. He ended up moving in with his cousin and was living in his cousin's attic. Now, Mary Lou Anderson, whose nickname was Kitty, was a former beauty queen who then met Jose in 1962 at SIU. Jose and Kitty ended up getting married. Actually, they eloped. And while Mary graduated from SIU, Jose then ended up getting his accounting degree, meanwhile working as a dishwasher. The couple welcomed a baby boy named Joseph in 1968, whose nickname is Lyle. So you'll hear me refer to him as Lyle throughout this video. And the couple had their second child, Eric, in 1970. The family then moved to Blackwood, New Jersey. At this point, Jose ended up making a career switch from accounting to the music industry. In the 1980s, he became a top executive at RCA Records. The family is now able to rent a $1 million estate in Princeton, New Jersey, while their sons attended prestigious private schools. Now let me set the record straight. Once their sons started to talk, the expectations were set. In 1986, Jose ended up switching careers again. This time, he wanted to get into the movie industry. As anyone knows, whoever wants that movie high life, where do they go? Hollywood, California. Here, Jose worked for Live Entertainment. In 1987, the company Live Entertainment had lost $20 million. Jose felt very confident that he can come in and increase their profit, and that he did. He was able to increase their profit by $8 million on the first year and by $16 million on their second. Let's just say Jose was a legit businessman, if you know what I'm saying. He was ruthless and cutthroat. You don't get to the CEO position of a multi-million-dollar company by not being aggressive. A lot of the employees that worked under him hated him. They felt that he was very difficult to work for. Now, a ruthless man like that is not faithful. He had multiple affairs behind his wife's back. Some lasted 8 years. He also used to deal with prostitutes. His wife knew about the affairs, but in order to keep the family together, in order to continue to live lavishly, she looked the other way. Jose had a salary of over $500,000 per year, and with additional bonuses, he was borderline a millionaire. Now, Jose was ashamed of his Cuban heritage. When he was offered a letter of recognition as a Latino businessman, he was offended. And he also didn't want people knowing what school he attended because it wasn't an Ivy League school. You can bet that his expectations for his sons was for them to go to Ivy League schools. The family then moved to Calabasas, California. And yes, Calabasas is known to house celebrities such as the Kardashians, Will Smith, Jessica Simpson. I mean, you get the point. They were rubbing elbows with the elite. As an outsider looking in, they pretty much lived the dream life. In Luke 12:15, it reads, "Then he said to them, 'Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions.'" How easy is it for us as believers to take our eyes off the spiritual and concentrate on the temporal? How easy is it to look away from heavenly things and direct our attentions to earthly pursuits. See, here's the thing. The child of God is to have an eternal perspective at all times. Our reward in heaven should be a far greater incentive for us to live a life that is pleasing to our Father, rather than the accumulation of things that will soon pass away and turn to rust. Now that we have a little bit of background on Jose Enrique Menendez, it's now time to talk about the Menendez brothers. The Menendez brothers, Eric and Lyle, had the life. They did semi-good in school and played many sports, but tennis was their thing. People have described the brothers as a bit ruthless. They said they had been crossed by the brothers or betrayed by them. Now, you don't have to look too far to see where the boys learned their ruthless ways. As the saying goes, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Since Lyle was the firstborn, he had higher expectations that were required of him, not only in intellectual knowledge and physical abilities, but in their attractiveness as well. The boys had an image to upkeep. They needed to look good at all times. The boys grew up with the concept that money is everything. You need to be the most successful. You need to be number one in everything that you do. The boys also had everything handed to them. This environment is known to breed bratty and spoil-rotten behavior. When a young child is given an abundance of pleasure and their errors are covered up instead of corrected, the child then seems to build a complex. They become self-entitled, selfish, and filled with greed. Greed is one of the 7 deadly sins.
He was so wealthy and so demanding that the way he raised his boys and the way he overshadowed his wife created a very dangerous atmosphere in the house.
Lyle Menendez is now 48 and his brother Eric is 46. At their trial, the jury rejected the brothers' claims that they were abused, choosing instead to side with the prosecution's contention that the Menendez brothers murdered their parents for the money.
Now, when Lyle began to drive, he actually wanted a Porsche. Could y'all imagine that? A 16-year-old with a Porsche? His father, Jose, actually put his foot down and said no. That may have been the first no in his life. Life must have been so good for these boys and so boring that they decided to break into a friend's house. One of the friends had the combination to the lock, so they were able to break in. They stole money out of the safe, they stole jewelry, and basically they had gotten away with it. Now, what I don't understand is if you're born with the silver spoon and you're living in a mansion, how could you want more? The boys had the spirit of greed. They didn't need the money. They weren't starving. However, for them, it was just the thrill. Ecclesiastes 5:10 reads, "Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless." Scripture shows us that money cannot buy peace. It says, whoever loves wealth can never be satisfied. In other words, a void or a bottomless pit that can never be fulfilled. This intense and selfish desire for more then turns into an insatiable need. The boys broke into another friend's house and stole, and some short time after that, they broke into another friend's house and did it again. They weren't stealing chump change either. They stole over $100,000 worth of items. And this includes jewelry, cash, pretty much anything that they can get their hands on. However, this third break-in, they got caught. Once their parents found out, their father, Jose, he was more mad that they got caught than the fact that they were actually stealing. The father tried to work his magic by writing a check, but the defendant didn't fall for it this time. They took them to court. The boys had to pay back the $100,000 that they stole, plus additional charges in damages. Lyle was already 18, and since Eric was still a juvenile, strategically, Eric took the full responsibility. This way, he can get a slap on the wrist and pretty much ended up having to do community service and therapy. Friends of the family dismissed this whole crime as some sick teenage joke that rich kids do for fun, as if $100,000 worth of items being stolen is anything to laugh at. The family then moved to a $4 million home in Beverly Hills. And guess who used to live in this mansion? Michael Jackson. Now, Lyle ended up getting accepted into Princeton University and enrolled to get a business degree like his father. Now, Lyle definitely got sidetracked while he was in college with partying, drinking, women, you name it. He pretty much was slacking. So much, He ended up plagiarizing one of his Psychology 101 assignments, and he got caught. His father came in with this checkbook trying to work his magic, but the school didn't fall for it. They expelled him for 1 year. Of course, Jose was very mad, not at his son, at the school. Clearly, we're seeing a lack of accountability here. Now that Lyle is expelled from Princeton University, his father decided to hire him to work at Live Entertainment. His father believed that Lyle would probably have the same business savvy mindset that he has and would work his way up the corporate ladder. Joseph was wrong. Lyle would roll into work super late. He would leave early to go play tennis. While he was there, he was just chatting up the girls in the office area and pretty much didn't do his job. He was getting a free paycheck at this point. It got so bad that his father, being the CEO, couldn't even save his job and he got fired. Now, Eric was doing okay in high school. He was really into acting, and him and his friend wrote a play called Friends. This play is about a boy who murdered his parents to inherit their money. Now, Jose wasn't too proud of his boys or how they were turning out. With Lyle being expelled, and he wasn't too proud of Eric, he had threatened to take them out of his will. It was thought that Jose was going to adjust the will, not totally remove the boys out of it, maybe give the boys their inheritance once they were a little more responsible or more older. We will never know. On August 19, 1989, the Menendez family went on a yacht. The crew had stated that the family was a little bit off. The brothers were very distant from their parents. And on the evening of August 20th, 1989, the brothers entered the family den and shot their parents dead. In order to have an alibi, the brothers ended up going to the movies. They intended to see License to Kill, but because that movie was sold out, they opted for Batman. The boys then returned home and called 911.
What's the problem? Someone killed my parents. Someone killed my parents. What?
Who is the person that was shot?
My mom and my dad.
Your mom and dad? Okay, hold on a second.
Let's just say there was a lot of damage. The carnage that these brothers left behind on the crime scene was monstrous. Their mom was unrecognizable and their dad was killed mercilessly. There was no mercy in the way that they killed their parents. In Matthew 10:36, it reads, "A man's foes shall be they of his own household." It's hard to imagine a more horrific scenario than a family member turning on you. To share a living space with one's worst enemy creates the worst kind of strife. We are a fallen and broken world where many people are given over to Satan and are being rewarded for doing so by the Prince of Darkness. Satan is content to wait until the person gets to hell before the torture begins. Otherwise, we may turn from him and towards God in repentance if the devil tortured us now. Sometimes the devil, he doesn't want you turning to God, so he will entice you with pleasurable sins and indulgence, greed. However, those who are benefiting on earth from the devil's reign will really want nothing to do with God. Or the lukewarm, which are those that have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Jose was 45 and Kitty was 47 years old. They were both dead on sight. Now, once the police arrived on scene, the brothers were hysterical. They were crying, shaking, and they seemed traumatized. Their grief seemed genuine. Once the police started questioning the brothers stated they had an alibi. They had went to the movies. Once they returned home, they found their parents assassinated in their Beverly Hills mansion. The brothers are such good actors that the police didn't even test them for gun residue, which is normal protocol for anyone who's at a crime scene. Now, in addition to the fatal wounds, the brothers ended up shooting both their parents in the kneecaps to make it look like this was mafia related. The brothers tried to put the blame on the mob. However, the police recognized that the crime scene was overkill and it did not look like the handiwork of the mafia. The brothers had said that their dad had connections to organized crimes and that many people wanted him dead. Throughout Jose's career, he has crossed so many people. He has betrayed, humiliated. I mean, a lot of people hated him. But would they want him dead? After the murders, the brothers immediately went on a shopping spree. And just one day before the funeral, on August 24th, Lyle purchased not one, not two, but 3 Rolex watches. The brothers not only showed up late to the funeral, but Lyle was also making casual jokes, stating that he will fill his dad's shoes since he was wearing some new fancy expensive shoes. And he was also talking about purchasing tickets for the US Open. Lyle did give one of the eulogies, but he just didn't seem that sad. The shopping spree continued, and Lyle ended up purchasing a Chuck's Spring Streets Cafe restaurant at $550,000 and a $60,000 Porsche. You know that Porsche he wanted when he was 16? That one. He also started a company and called it Menendez Investment Enterprises. I mean, these two brothers were acting like they just won the lottery.
In the days after the murder, an inexplicable shopping spree by the brothers.
Why did you need to buy a Rolex watch 4 days after your parents were killed?
I didn't need to.
They made the case that the brothers were afraid of being cut out of their parents' will. But the story took a turn when the defense revealed an alleged deep-rooted family secret.
He killed his parents because he could no longer endure their abuse and had to stop it.
1 Timothy 6, verse 9 to 10 reads, "Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Greedy people are compulsive. They are continually trapped in sins by their consuming desire to acquire more. Such greed may lead these people to suffer the tragic end of destruction and hell, where there is eternal punishment for the wicked." The brothers ended up spending over $700,000 in a span of 6 months, which in today's money is $1.5 million.
They just started spending money, and that just didn't seem like the way to grieve over the loss of your parents, is to start spending their money.
The brothers were set to inherit their parents' wealth, which their father was worth $14 million. Plus, they had a $5 million life insurance policy that they were also getting. The police started to find it suspicious that the brothers never contacted the investigation unit to see if there was any updates with the case, nor if there were any leads. Now, pair this with the brothers' excessive spending, the police then began to take a closer look at the brothers, who had much to gain. Once the police took a closer look at the brothers, turns out they had purchased guns on August 18th and had their household computer drives completely wiped out. There was also a family therapist that used to see their mother, Kitty, on a regular basis. And the therapist admitted that Kitty was afraid of her 2 sons. She told the therapist that she believes that her sons were sociopaths. Now, just a couple of weeks before the murders, the boys had seen a program on TV called Billionaire Boys Club. In the film, the lead character kills his father, and the boys had Rolexes and also drove a Jeep, which some of these were the exact same purchases that the Menendez brothers had purchased right after the murder. There was some striking resemblance from the film and the brothers. And not only that, but guess who released that film? Live Entertainment, the very same company where their father worked at as a CEO. On March 8, 1990, a warrant for the arrest of the 2 brothers was issued, and they were both set to attend the arraignment hearing at the Beverly Hills courtroom. The brothers were seen smiling and looking pretty confident.
Eric Galen Menendez, do you understand the charges against you?
I understand both of them, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph Lyle Menendez, do you understand the charges against you?
Yes.
Now, during the trial, the defense team announced their strategy. The boys would plead guilty as a means of self-defense after years of suffering physical and sexual abuse at the hands of their father. The claim is that their father sexually abused them since they were little boys. So the defense strategy is to paint the deceased father as a monster versus a victim.
A rare jailhouse interview with one of the infamous Menendez brothers, who together murdered their parents in their lavish Beverly Hills mansion 27 years ago, where they spoiled rich kids run amok or enraged victims of sexual abuse.
The prosecution team, however, fought against this, stating the brothers were just after their parents' wealth. They were spoiled, rich kids that probably thought that they can get away with it. It was thought that the defense strategy was a ploy since the boys were actually taped confessing to the crime. This meant that since they had an audio of the boys confessing to the murder, they could not plead not guilty. Eric was publicly outspoken about the deep admiration that he had for his father, despite having a deep hatred for him.
Describe your relationship with your father.
Brutal. Painful. Torturous. And yet, I admired him because he was so strong, and he was everything that success was.
During the court trial, Eric spoke explicitly about the sexual abuse, and ultimately it worked to his advantage because this led to a hung jury. Now I'm curious to see what you guys think. Do you believe that the Menendez brothers acted in self-defense and are the actual victims? Or was this a case of cold-blooded murder that was a result of greed? The Menendez brothers were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder and are serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The Menendez brothers are not only bonded by blood, but by the blood on their hands. That's it for today. Leave your thoughts down below, and if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. God bless you.